Welcome to another session of D106 Toolbox. Today, we're going to be discussing the role of the Vice President of Public Relations within Toastmasters. We'll have time for questions at the end, but you can put them in the chat as you think of them. My name is John Barrett, and I've been a Toastmaster for 7 years. I've worked in public relations for 15 years, and I'm currently the VP of PR for Toast on a Stick, my club in St. Paul. We're going to talk about the public relations goals within Toastmasters. Your goal is to generate positive awareness of the Toastmasters brand and your club for the purpose of attracting and retaining members using effective communication channels and media relations. So some things to note about that is we're looking for positive awareness. Sometimes in PR, we are trying to put out the fires and keep people away from the information. But now here, we're just trying to get the information out. We're also looking at effective communication channels, not just getting it out there any way we can. We're trying to work smarter, not harder. And we're using media relations, not media placement. So we're not going to be spending any money. We're trying to do this on a budget. Why a VP of PR? Well, one of the things that's very important is that we have club goals that we want to achieve. And we're working with the other officers. VP of PR is responsible for getting the word out to the outside about our club, what's going on within our club. People out there don't know what's going on and we have to show them. So it's kind of like the barker at the old shows that would say, you know, step right up, come and see. He walks, he talks, he crawls on his belly like a reptile. Sure, I'll go in and see that. That sounds interesting. That's what our job is as the VP of PR. We're trying to get them interested in coming in to find out what we're doing. We're also trying to paint a face on the club. Who are the members within our club? People don't understand that. They want to know that. And the club is really more about who is Toastmasters rather than what is Toastmasters. So painting that picture of who the members are, what we do, and getting that word to people outside of our club, that's what our role is all about. It's about relationships. And we have to relate to a variety of different groups. So we relate to the media. Not a one-time thing. This is something that's ongoing. We have to talk with them again and again and again, give them good, honest information, make sure that it's interesting, it's what they need, it's how they need to get it. We'll talk about that. We also have to relate to the community. The community at large, they have needs, we have skills. We have to find out how we can fit in with that community and make people respect us and the things that we do and seek us out. That's really one of the goals. We also have to relate to our club members, the current people that we have. We need to keep those club members. We need to make sure that we reinforce the fact that the choice that they made to be a part of our club was a good one. We've got wonderful things going. Maybe we're winning awards. We keep reinforcing what they're doing and we help them. This is going to be important as we go on. Let's talk about the media. The media in general is going to be newspaper, radio, and television. That's the old-fashioned media. And when we talk about those, again, we're not paying for those. That's something that we want to make sure that you're aware of. We're just trying to find stories that are of interest to their audience. And that's an important thing. They need to have stories that are of interest to their audience. If it's a newspaper about Duluth, Minnesota, then they're going to want to know things about Duluth, Minnesota, but they don't care about soil erosion down in Florida. That's not of interest to their people. So make sure that the stories that you have are of interest to them. Secondly, they need stories that have contact information and that are complete to begin with. They don't want to have to build a story. They want it to be spoon-fed to them. So when you're giving them a story, give them all of the information they're going to need in order to write that story, along with contact information if they should decide that they want to do follow-up and find out a teeny bit more. They also want prompt, reliable, and accurate responses. When they call you, they're already on deadline and running behind, and they're panicking a little, and they need this information. Please tell me. They can't get a phone message and you call them back 4 days later. They need it now. So that's a very important thing. When I worked at the Children's Hospital, I had a 1-minute return policy, and we got a lot of calls because it was reliable and they could get information from us. So make sure that the information you give them is reliable, but get it to them quickly. That's going to be important. It's also very helpful to have an image, a quote, a story rather than just a basic fact. Images are fantastic for them, because even if they don't run the image, that shows them what's going on, that shows them what an open house looks like. It is very helpful. It doesn't always get run. A quote is also very good. It's attributable to somebody, probably a club president, maybe a visitor, whatever, but being able to give them a quote is great. So make sure that you're giving them things like that. So it's not just the basic words of the story, but it's that painting a picture, putting a face on it, giving it a voice. And you need to approach the right person within the organization. If you go to the TV station and talk to the sports director about your open house or about what's going on, they're not going to care. The meteorologist not going to care. So you've got to find someone that works that beat, someone who would be interested in what you're doing, in how that affects business. And depending on what your story is, finding that right person might be a person you've never dealt with before, but it's important that you go to the right person within that organization. It's also important that you approach them in the right way. And some of this is that relationship. You'll find that there are people who do not like to be called on the phone, or there are people who do not deal with text messages or email or emojis or whatever. You have to find out who that person is that you're dealing with in the media, and how do they like to get stuff? Do they want to have a full-blown news release? Do they want to have a media alert? Do they want to have an email, a text, a phone call, whatever? You have to figure out what it is that they like and get it to them the way they want. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's an important thing. That's part of that relationship. How does this person like to be talked to? What's the right way to do this? We'll also talk about social media. The biggest part about social media is your club's webpage. That's going to be the number one thing. The webpage is the first thing that people will see if they're looking for you, if they're trying to find out who you are, if they're saying, well, let's just see what this is all about, and that club webpage. Now, there's a lot of other things out there. There are many, many options for social media, and you could get a degree in trying to understand and comprehend and use social media, but you can't use all of them, and you shouldn't try, because they just go on and on and on. You can find a lot of videos on YouTube that will show you how to use specific ones, but don't feel you have to understand all of social media. You only have to know those areas that you really need to know. But first things first, what you need to know is your audience. Who is your audience? It's like giving a speech. You have to understand to whom you're trying to speak. It's important to know. You're not going to give the same information to a first grade class that you would to CEOs. So when you're trying to find that audience, the first thing to do is to have a target audience. And that target audience is going to be made up of a lot of things. And it depends on who you want in your club, who you can have in your club. It might be college students, it might be college teachers, salespeople. It could be supervisors who have introverted people working for them that need to present better. It could be community leaders. It could be anybody in the tri-state area, whatever. You have to identify that, because you can't speak to anyone. So you have to have that target audience. Now, one of the target audience is going to be the media, but it's not all of the media, right? We're not trying to get on the Today Show. We're not trying to get the Washington Post to cover a story, but we might like our local newspaper. That would be nice. We might find that there's a local radio station or a radio station that caters to whatever it is we're doing. There are some business podcasts out there. There's some other things that you can get into that might help with getting that word out. And that's your target audience. Also, remember that your current members are your target audience. There's a lot of things that you need to get to them, a lot of information you need to get to them, because they're going to be helping you with this public relations. All right. You have to get the information out to the current members as well as anybody else, potential members that you're trying to get in. You're trying to reinforce the people that are here, make sure that they know they made a right decision, and they'll turn around and tell other people, hey, this is a right decision, you should make it as well. You also need to look at community leaders. That's an important thing. We're trying to put Toastmasters in a positive light and make the club look favorable. So reaching out, helping people in the community, finding ways that you can do things. Maybe you have a speech craft at a local library. Those things are things that you can do that don't cost any money, that potentially can bring people in, but put Toastmasters in a good light. So remember the community, and remember business leaders. There's a lot of people out there in business and a lot of supervisors that are looking for effective, and cost-effective training for their people. So make sure you reach out to them. At US Bank, we did that. We did an open house just for the supervisors and showed them what Toastmasters can do. And we had a lot of people that then were asked to go to Toastmasters to try it once and see what they thought. So that's an important thing to be aware of. That's a good group of people for you. And at the end, you have to define what their needs are. What are the needs of each of those different target audience members? What is it that we provide that they need? Because that's how you're going to craft what you're going to send to them. You're going to try to speak to them about those needs and how we can help them with it. That's going to be important for you. But what channel? What does our audience currently use? How do they like to communicate? What methods are they using? It's been shown in research that if someone reaches out to you in a method of communication, you should respond in that same method. So if they call you on the phone, you should call them back on the phone. If they stop by and ask you a question, you should stop by and give them the answer, because they would like you to talk to them the same way they talk to you. So reach out and talk to them the same way. It's the same way with our audiences here. What are they currently using? How do they want to communicate? And can we do that? Do we have the resources to do the communication the way that they like to do it? If, for example, they're really into Instagram and they communicate and send information and look for information on Instagram, that's great if we understand Instagram and know how to use it and have the time to use it. If we don't, can we find someone that has that skill set? Can we find a champion that will say, yeah, I'll communicate via Instagram for you? That way the job can still get done. The social media mix is a problem because there are so many targets out there. There are so many things that you can do in social media. And the social media just keeps going. If you find one or two channels that your audience uses, identify one or two areas that they use, you can then focus on that. You can sit and do a very good job with those one or two areas, but you don't have to try to do everything because you can't, and you're going to end up failing and being frustrated. So focus on one or two things. Maybe your club web page and a Facebook page is all you need. You have to decide that. You have to make a plan and figure that out. But that's important for you to not try to do everything. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Just pick one or two, learn how to use it. And then if you get better at it, you can move on and add a third channel. You don't have to take it all on at once. Now there's entire probably libraries full of information and resource on how to use social media effectively. And it's constantly changing because they have search engine optimization, things that change every day, and there's constantly new things popping up and things falling off the radar. So for those of you who've been around for a while, maybe you were on Friendster, maybe you were on MySpace, now you're on Facebook, or maybe you've gone past that and you're doing something else. It's constantly changing. So you have to figure out how to engage that audience. After you've identified the audience, you have to engage them. One of the things that works really well, this is just a brief overview of things that work well, and you can take whatever you want from this. You can also look up how to do this on YouTube or anywhere else. There's a lot of information out there. But images pull people in. And if you can give them some sort of an image of an open house, that says a lot more than we had an open house. So show them, don't tell them. Being able to bring them in with interesting images. Also videos. There are a lot of things that you can share on a video. You can share a meeting, you can share table topics, you could share all kinds of stuff. In fact, I would challenge you, if you have a video camera, do a couple of icebreaker speeches and capture people doing their icebreaker speech, and then wait until a year or two later. And if they get their DTM or if they just become better, being able to show before and after. This was Bob on Bob's first day. This is Bob now. Being able to show that would be very powerful. So don't overlook sharing videos on a web page or a link to a YouTube. That'd be great. Offering timely information is really important. And timely information is difficult. Like if you're trying to get into a magazine, you need to give them the information a couple of weeks ahead of time. If you're trying to get into a newspaper, you have to give them the information a couple of days ahead of time. If you're on social media, you can show stuff live. You can do a live broadcast of an open house or whatever. I don't think you can do contests, but you could do an open house. So there's a lot of things like that that you have to figure out what that timely information is and how to get it to them. Because if you want people to come to your event, you have to give them some lead time. And that's going to be important. If you have people that are trying to get to an event and you've given them the information after the fact, like, oh, that would have been nice to get to. Make sure that you're getting them that timely information. And then you also want to make sure that you're giving them useful information. And this is one of the best things that we can do in Toastmasters is give people useful information. We're giving you useful information for free. And you go, wow, that's really nice. That's really handy. Look at that. They're doing a thing on nonverbal communication. That could be really handy. How to do better Zoom talks. That would be wonderful. Give them that information and they go, this is really a good group. They've got some good stuff here. I'm going to find out more. So make sure that you're giving people good information. You don't have to generate the content yourself. There's a lot of content out there that you can find and you can repurpose for yourself and just say, here's a really wonderful talk by so-and-so, a TED talk. Go and look at that. That's a great way to do it. You also want to be consistent. You don't want to just do it once. A lot of people will make this big mistake of getting all fired up for this big event, and then they end up stopping after that. They just do, it's a one and done. And that's not how this works. It's a relationship. It's a relationship between you and a bunch of unknown people out there. You're trying to give them the knowledge, the information, the wisdom, the tips, whatever, so that they'll come and check out your club. It's an ongoing thing. So you have to be consistent. You have to be reliable. You also have to ask questions. And asking questions is a great way to empower people. And it also lets them feel like they have a say rather than you're just talking to them. Now you're talking with them. And that's a big difference. So for example, you could ask a question, which makes you more nervous? Talking in front of a boardroom full of people, performing on stage, or making small talk at a cocktail party? And I recently asked this question and found that 2-to-1 people did not like making small talk at a cocktail party. So I put together a list of tips on how to be engaging at a cocktail party. And it turns out the number one thing is to ask other people questions about themselves, because most people like talking about themselves. So ask questions. And the second part of that is you have to listen. When they say something, you have to listen. You have to get to know them. If they say, I don't like talking in front of a boardroom, help them. Find some stuff for them. Understand that that's an issue. So when you're doing this, it's an ongoing thing. You're trying to figure out who they are, what they need, and how you can give it to them. It's pretty simple stuff, but we just don't think it through. We don't make a plan. So you need to have a plan. You need to plan, what am I going to be doing? How am I going to do it? When do I do it? Who's going to help me do it? Now, this is a very basic plan, but you can make your plans as elaborate as you want, or you can make them as simple as you need to. It can be one thing a month. Or you can say, I'm going to have flyers coming out here, a newsletter here. You can get a team of people working together to help you, because it's not just all about you, it's the club. And so if somebody's good at doing flyers, have them do the flyers. If someone's good with Facebook, have them do Facebook. You don't have to do it all, but if you have the plan, you can make that work. So make sure that you have a plan. You wouldn't want to start a business without a plan. We don't like to have Toastmaster clubs that don't have a plan. And we certainly don't want the VP of PR to not have a plan. So make a plan. It doesn't have to be all the way out to the end of the year. It could be quarter by quarter. And it might be a very fluid thing, given the way things are in the world today. Plans change. So make sure that you're not too tied down to your plan, but you need to have a plan. And it's a lot easier once you do that. So you've got your PR team. I don't know if you knew this, but you have a PR team. Yay. You're in charge of that PR team. Everyone in your club is in public relations. Everyone that goes out and speaks, everyone that goes out in public is presenting on behalf of Toastmasters. People will know that they are a Toastmaster. And if they're presenting in a meeting and they look good, that's good for Toastmasters. If they're presenting in a meeting and they don't look good, that's not good for Toastmasters. So it's important to realize that. They're also able to reach out and touch more people. They have contact with a lot more people than you do. So the synergistic effect of everybody reaching out to all of the people gets the word out to more, and we get more people coming into our clubs. That's important. Nothing that you do is going to probably be more powerful than a friend extending a personal invitation to a friend. You can try lots of stuff, but the one thing that matters is a friend saying, hey, this really worked for me. I want this to work for you. So make sure that you're helping that team, that you're encouraging that team to reach out to their friends, and you're giving them the tools that they need to convince their friends to do this. Now, there's a really nice fact sheet on Toastmasters.org, but you want to have one that's specific to your club, on what your club has done and how your club is a winner, so that people can join up. So make sure you're giving them those tools. Now, some of the tools that you can use to convince your friends and help them convince their friends, flyers for upcoming events. And flyers are simple to do because Toastmasters gives you a template to do a very easy, simple flyer. So it's not a big, difficult thing, but you have to do those flyers. When you give them the flyer, they can post that flyer at Starbucks. They can post the flyer in the break room. They can send it to their friends electronically, whatever you need to do, but getting them that is helpful. A club newsletter. This is a really handy thing. I did a club newsletter. It was 2 pages. It was simple. It had a nice little story on the front cover. It had a little bit of a speech craft on how to do a particular skill so that anybody seeing it could use it in their next presentation. It had a word of the day. It had some interesting facts about famous Toastmasters, and it was just a simple thing that was sent out in a PDF form. But that club newsletter then was dropped off on people's desks. It was sent to other people electronically. Those are the kinds of tools that you can give people. And if you're not good at putting together a newsletter, find someone who is. It's a simple thing to do. It doesn't take much. All right. Announcements of awards won by the club. Our club is distinguished, our club, whatever. Make sure that you are getting those out there, because that reinforces the wonderfulness of your club. And also awards won by the members. We're winners. We've got winners in our club. People like to be with winners. They don't want to associate with losers. So when you win, let people know, hey, so-and-so won this contest. That's an important thing too. Make sure that you have some presentation related articles. How to speak better, how to capture people in the opening 30 seconds, whatever it is, but things that people can use immediately. It doesn't have to be in Toastmasters, things that they can use in their job, things that they can use in their work. If you can give people things like that, they will be so happy. Bring it on. I need more of this. I'm going to go check out your club and see what it's all about. So make sure you're giving things like that, that you are that source of resources. Give them that information that they need. And you could put together a simple little speechcraft cheat sheet, something that shows nonverbal communication, 2 pages, 1 page that just shows nonverbal communication, words to avoid, words that are confusing, whatever, anything like that. That's just a real helpful thing. But when people start seeing that stuff around the office and it's branded with Toastmasters, that puts us in a positive light and puts our club in a positive light and gets more people interested in Toastmasters. The bottom line is the people out there, they want to know about Toastmasters, but they want to know what's in it for me. That's the important thing for them. If they have something that they get out of it right away before they even join, they're going to be much more likely to join than if they have to join and wait for a couple of weeks for anything really important to happen. Get them information now. Get them help now. Pretend you're mentoring them now, because that's how they're seeing it. What's in it for me? Your club webpage is going to be very important. It's how you put a face on your club. It's how people will see you. And there's a member profile that everyone was supposed to fill out. It's your job to go back and make sure that everyone has one filled out. And maybe they need to make it more current. You also need pictures of them. Pictures show people who the club is, because a Toastmaster club isn't so much a what. A Toastmaster club is more of a who. And that's important. And you're trying to literally show them who is in that club. So paint that picture for them. Give them some club news, the meeting information. Here's where we meet. Here's when we meet. Here's what's coming up next. Perhaps here's who's speaking. And maybe you could do a thing. Here's who spoke the last 3 weeks. Here are the different topics that we spoke about. Maybe have the titles of the speeches or a synopsis of the speech, something like that. Quotes from an eval, whatever. Give them information. They want to see, what is a meeting like? What is it about? Maybe have a sample agenda up so they can see what your agendas are like. That's really important. When it all comes down to it's complicated to figure out what they need. But when you're marketing something like a club, it's really important that you give them stuff for free and show them how this will help them. And it's a difference between, I guess in marketing, we talk about features and benefits and value. And a lot of times we spend so much time talking about the features and we maybe talk about the benefits, but we almost never talk about the value. And so, for example, if you're talking about toothpaste, the feature is it has a drop of Retsin. I don't even know what Retsin is, but this has a drop of Retsin. The value, or the benefit for that, rather, the benefit is you have better breath because you brushed with this toothpaste with a drop of Retsin. The value on that, though, and this is what we don't talk about, is it could offend fewer people. It could increase your sales. You could get that date you were hoping for. There's a lot of value to Toastmasters. We spend a lot of time talking about the features, and we talk about some of the benefits, but what is that value? What does it really mean to someone if they can present better, if they can increase their sales? So make sure that you're talking about that. Don't spend as much time working on the features. How does it apply to them? How does that rubber hit the road for them? So keep that in mind when you're putting together stuff. It's what's in it for them. Let them know that. According to Toastmasters, there is a to-do list for things that the vice president of PR should do. Promote the club to eligible guests. And of course, we've talked about this, but that's what you're really trying to do. You're trying to get the word out and get people in. You're also trying to develop and maintain the social media page, the web for certain, and other things. The more you can do, the better to get that word out. But again, we want to keep a nice standard. We want it to be good. We want it to be consistent. So don't overreach and then have it all die off. You're in charge of putting together news releases and marketing material. And Toastmasters.org has a lot of information on that. We'll talk about that in a second, but they want to have you putting stuff out there. And so they help with templates and things like that. So that's one of your jobs. You're also in charge of creating publicity campaigns, getting people to be aware of the club, having open houses, things like that. That's going to be something that you're going to want to do in order to get people in, to make it seem like we're looking for people. They want to know that they're welcome. And you also need to maintain the Toastmaster brand. Now, Toastmaster has worked for 100 years to develop this brand so that when you see that blue globe, you know it's Toastmasters, and they want everybody out there to know it's Toastmasters. So they have developed this brand. And if you go to Toastmasters.org, they have a brand portal that talks all about it. So the information that you put out there should all look like it's Toastmasters. People should be able to see it from a distance and recognize it. Each flyer that comes out should look like Toastmasters. Oh, this is another Toastmasters thing. I'll grab this because the last one was really good. If we don't do that, then what happens is we have people who put together whatever they can and throw stuff out there that doesn't look like Toastmasters, and it's not good. So sorry, Toast on a Stick, can't do that. Make sure that you're following that brand. That's your job. Now, the to-do list kind of expands. There are things that you could do. You could do that newsletter. You don't have to. You could do flyers and open house things. You could do networking with other VPPRs. You could do contest announcement. You don't have to do all of them, but they're things that you could do. All right. It's important that you do as much as you can do without burning out, and that you do it at a nice level that you're proficient at. So make sure that you are not putting out bad stuff, and make sure you're not hurrying. That's going to be important as well. That membership profile is something that you really should do. I'll just tell you that right now, because that's how you're going to paint that face. So make sure all of your members have done that membership profile. Some of the resources that you have available to you, you have other club officers. So you've got your club and you've got other club officers. Reach out. Everybody's done this. All the VPPRs have done this. Don't reinvent the wheel. Go to them, get their information. You also have YouTube and the web. There is a ton of information out there about how to do social media, about how to do news releases, about how to generate interest in a club or an organization. So go and look them up, find out what people know, find out what the best and easiest way is. Find out also what the media wants. Talk to them. That's a great resource. Watch the media. See what's in your local paper. See what information goes into a story. Here's what information I got out of this story. When I do a story, I have to put all that information into the story. Talk to the media. Talk to whoever's in charge of business or whoever's in charge of variety or whatever section it is that you think is going to be applicable to whatever the event is that you're doing. Find out how they want their information. That's going to be something that's vital, is to be able to talk to them, make that contact with them, say, I really want to help you by doing it the right way. Help me help you. The other thing is Toastmasters.org, and there is a ton of information on Toastmasters.org. If you go to the resource library, they have all kinds of things on how to put stuff together, how to do releases. They've got stuff that's pre-made, and all you have to do is to type in your information on the flyer. There's a little text box, and the rest of it is all built and put together. It looks very professional. So make sure that you utilize that. That's going to be an incredible resource for you. For example, it talks about constructing a press release, and it's actually considered a news release at this point because it's not all about the presses, it's about the news. So a news release, and this talks about the headlines and the subheads, how to put it all together, what's important, how to do this. And I'll just tell you from experience, they don't really go into it in great detail, but what's really important is the headline, because if the headline doesn't draw you in, you're not going to read the rest of it. I would spend, when I was doing press releases, I would spend as much time on the headline as the entire rest of the release put together, because it's all about the headline. For example, if you're trying to do a press release and the headline is Toastmaster places first in Toastmaster contest, yeah, that's kind of a snooze fest waiting to happen there. I'm not going to read the rest of that, and I'm in Toastmasters. So Toastmaster places first. That's not good. But if it says this, local teacher wins title of best speaker in the world, you've already drawn me in because it's local teacher, right? That's gonna, I kind of want to see who that is. Maybe it's a teacher that I had. And best speaker in the world, that tells me a little bit more about rather than contest. So make sure that that headline, you work on it. Don't settle for the first thing you think of. Make sure you work on it. Does this draw me in? Does this draw me in? How can I be drawn in? Because those people that you're giving it to, you have to draw them in to read that second line. If that first line doesn't work, the second line doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your subheader is. Okay. One of the best resources you can get, one of the best things you could do, be to go to Toastmasters.org, go to the resource library and download Let the World Know. This is a 59-page book that has all kinds of stuff on what public relations is, what you're supposed to be doing, public relations versus advertising, making goals, target audience, news, social media, all that stuff. It's all there. It's a fantastic resource. So I strongly, if you do nothing else, go get that and look at that. That has the answers to everything you're going to come up with. All right. Finally, your club has given you an opportunity to lead them. And as a leader, you have to make decisions and put in effort. You have to create this new position. If nobody else has brought it up to the level that you want to have it at, maybe you're following in some great shoes, but you have to get out there. You have to make sure that you are making this what you want it to be. Leave that legacy behind and create that great club. I hope you'll do that. Thank you for joining us. Are there any questions?